Hi friends, in Planet Earth Dating, it's Tuesday, November 17th, 2015. There's interestingly shifting soul energy in the Lynn-Life and the Jamie-Body-Mind, but we know that we have teammates in other dimensions and that all of us are in the physical dimension and that we are all working to manifest the divine plan. The data clearly showing what's needed is to provide a collective restart. Wiser minds above, having set the deadline for the restart as January 17th, 2017, we are working toward that goal by working through a series of nested deadlines. The next deadline for us is midnight, November 28th, 2015, which is the beginning of Advent. With that, it begins.
Flushing from below.
This might be two separate questions. Let's break them up.
That's true.
How high will we have to reach someone worth listening to? And how high will we have to reach a presence of true integrity?
That's true.
They may not be the same. Well, I have the tea bags on the counter in front of me.
That's true.
These are new tea bags. They're folding shows they've not been used before.
That's true.
And some of them are partially stuffed with tea leaves, and some of them are next to a pile of tea leaves.
That's true.
But as best I can tell, they're not yet in the cups of hot water.
That's true.
And these tea bags and the affiliated tea leaves seem to be associated with the soul presences of Team Awakening,
That's true.
the leadership group that we're used to working with.
That's true.
And we see the Black Wolf tea bag. When I look at the Black Wolf tea bag, the tea bag that represents Black Wolf, he's kind of walking himself over to the cup of water, and he's preparing to jump into the hot water.
That's
and I
true.
can see that he left behind, they look like lemon seeds.
Yes, they do.
That were bitter and that were part of his mix. He has let go of bitterness.
That's true.
In this process of transitioning, and he is by force of will getting into that cup of hot water himself.
That's true.
Rock on, Black Wolf. These tea bags look alive.
That's true. They're moving.
They're moving, and I see another tea bag who clearly is Ra.
That's true.
And he is very carefully sifting through the last remnants. He believes that these remnants are things he is supposed to let go of, that they are not helpful.
That's true.
And he's very carefully making that sorting motion we've seen him make so many times.
That's true.
To just be sure, and now he seems to be moving, but it's in a different motion.
It's more like a roll.
Rolling. He's rolling.
That's true.
He's just rolling toward the teacup,
That's true.
and he is coming in.
That's true.
It feels good. I see Asha.
And there's movement in the Asha tea bag.
Yes. There's still things in her tea bag that aren't her.
That's true.
There are other riders. Those aren't you, Asha. There's stuff that's not you in your tea bag.
And she's saying something like, I can feel that there's stuff that isn't me, but I can't see it, and when I reach for it, I'm not grabbing it.
It's on her back. It's near lower back. It's like where a bustle would be.
That's true.
It's in the place that would be hardest for her to see and reach.
That's true.
I see that Betty Jean tea bag.
Yes, it's moving, vibrating.
Betty Jean, Betty Jean tea bag, can you edge your way over to the Asha tea bag and find those? There are at least 2,
3,
and
4,
maybe 5 at most, 2 to 5 things that are life forms in and of themselves. They're moving kind of independently.
That's true.
What it looks like is like bugs in the tea bag.
That's what it looks like. That's true.
And Betty Jean says she can see those bugs, and she's positive they don't belong. Can you pick out those bugs? I don't know what to put them into.
I think that's a yes.
Yes, she's going to put them into something. Now we can comb the tea bag of Asha and see if there are any more. And there are nits. They look like
That's true.
eggs of the bugs.
That's true.
We don't want those.
And actually, Asha's not the only one that has the knits. There are knits in Black Wolf.
I see the nits. Well, it's like a flea comb.
That's true.
Combing these tea
They're
bags.
Nits and Ra.
I see them.
They're Nits and Betty Jean.
Well, let's all get in a circle
That's
and
true.
comb each other to get out the nits, because the nits seem to be in that lower back area by and large.
That's true.
It feels like what's supposed to happen is as soon as Betty Jean is clean enough and everything else is handled, that she is supposed to slip into this teacup. And as soon as Asha is clean enough and everything else is also handled, that she is supposed to slip into that teacup.
That's true.
Okay. It's not good for us to engage in a group melting. What we're trying to do, we already did group melt. It was like an event of mass death.
That's
and
true.
now the sorting into individuated consciousnesses has begun. But we need to get these tea bags into the water.
The water.
And so it might be that there's still some nits. We can boil the water. We can put the tea bags into the water and bring the water to the boil.
That's true.
There's sadness. These nits are possibly ideas
That's what it feels like.
that we don't want to let go of, but are obviously untrue and give rise to untrue ideas.
That's true. The nits eat away at the truth in the tea mixture. It's not just that the nits are untruth themselves, it's that they eat the truth.
They will hatch into something that will eat the truth.
That's true.
Ooh, and I feel the tea bag dunking up and down. A big hand dunking these tea bags up and down.
That's true.
It looks to me like some of the dead nits are kind of starting to float up to the surface of the water.
That's true.
And we can just scoop them up. It's a beautiful representation about how the error patterns of the soul will begin to manifest through the life form that the soul is inhabiting. It's true. They come in with the nits, whatever nits they have. They come into the hot water of the life, which is a funny play on words. And those nits, seeds of unhelpful patterns, come up to the surface.
That's true.
And now we have the opportunity to clear them. And if we don't clear them, they will turn into a problem.
That's true.
Let's just hand them up to someone worth listening to.
That's true.
That feels
I
better.
feel them being taken.
I do too. We're handing these to someone worth listening to. Now we're aware of the phenomenon of self-selected, self-identified. I am someone worth listening to.
That's true.
We'll see. We'll take it with a grain of salt.
It's true.
And to that person I would say up there, if you are aware of the miracle experiment, the first miracle experiment, and that no miracle was delivered, and if you are aware that Pan, for example, was messed with, and he is still not back with us, and if you do nothing, then you are passively responsible for it.
That's true.
And you are not a person with whom I wish to deal, because you don't have integrity.
That's true.
Unless you make it right.
That's
They
true.
don't feel like they intend to make it right. What
No,
feels
not
to
at
me is
all.
like those hands are gone.
That's true.
And they're kind of angry.
That's true.
Maybe we don't separate those questions. Maybe we say, how high will we have to reach a presence of true integrity who is worth listening to?
That feels good.
Or maybe we just say, how high will we have to reach a person of true integrity, knowing that that is a
someone
person
worth listening to. That's true.
Right. Well, the making it right has to do with drawing in the 555 nature realms presences,
That's
making
true.
it really clear that they too are acknowledged as an integral part of this process.
That's true.
And that to continue to cycle through the search for truth pillar and then out into the rest of the all that is, and then back into the search for truth pillar, and then out into the rest of the all that is an eternal process.
That's true.
And the only way to really get to what's actually going on. Because out in the rest of the all that is, there isn't a search for truth.
That's true.
Hence the need for the collective restart.
That's true.